It appears as though we're going to the polls on September the 20th. To discuss this in a little more detail is Lethbridge MP with the Conservative Party of Canada, Rachel Harder, the newly married MP. Congratulations again, Rachel.
Thank you, Hal. Thank you.
How was the honeymoon?
We did manage to get away for a little bit. Of course, we stayed fairly local, but it was nice to unplug and take a few days away and just to be able to explore a bit of Western Canada together.
And now it appears as though you're going to be hitting the campaign trail with a federal election. It looks like it's coming up on September the 20th. Are you and the Conservative Party of Canada ready? I mean, your leader, Aaron O'Toole, is reportedly not happy that we're going to be having an election here.
Yeah, I think we're disappointed that the Prime Minister is taking advantage of Canadians during a period of time where they're quite vulnerable. There's no reason for this election. He doesn't need to call one for another 2 years, but he certainly sees an opportunity where the polls seem to be in his favor at the moment. It's unfortunate because ultimately Canadians are going to be the one who are, put at a disadvantage because of that. I mean, he's said all along that we need to make sure we're taking care of Canadians, that we need to make sure that the government is focused on the COVID response. And here he is planning an election when we're told that a variant is potentially going to cause a fourth wave in the fall. So really, I'm left with no other choice than to conclude that we have an opportunistic prime minister who really is more interested in securing his job than he is in the well-being of Canadians.
There's also a lot of wildfires across the west here, Manitoba, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, even some here in Alberta. So us here in the west, we're probably not as happy either about going to the polls on September the 20th.
Yeah, and not only the wildfires, but farmers are facing a massive drought, and of course, you can imagine the stress that that's causing them here in Western Canada. And then on top of that, you also have the municipal election coming up across the province of Alberta, and so you can just imagine the confusion with all of the election signs and door knocking and advertisements that are going to go out. People are going to be left wondering, who's running for municipal, who's running for federal, like what is going on? So there's potential for a lot of craziness this fall here in Alberta.
Well, we do know you're not running for Lethbridge mayor, right? I think that part we did figure out.
Hal, that is a very safe conclusion. I'll be running again to be the Member of Parliament for Lethbridge.
Okay. Now let's talk about our country's debt, Rachel, for just a few moments here. Now over $1 trillion. As for getting back to black, the parliamentary budget officer says Canada cannot expect to balance the books until the year 2070. Let's talk about all the Liberal spending. The PM has been traveling across the country, making promises on childcare, transit help. Is this just to buy maybe more votes?
Well, certainly the Prime Minister has been busy making announcements. Much of it is re-announcements of money that was already promised in the 2021 budget. And so it would appear that he's doing a lot of electioneering. Now, what I find very troubling in the midst of this is exactly what you said. The parliamentary budget officer has made it very clear that we're in trouble as a country. I mean, Canadians are already reporting to me that they're having a hard time making the ends meet, right? So whether it's paying for groceries or fuel for their vehicles or a roof over their heads, Canadians are saying life is getting more and more expensive. And that's exactly what happens when the government takes on massive amounts of debt. Inflation goes up, the cost of living goes up, and our overall economic well-being as a country goes down, which means that our standard of living and our overall happiness also goes down. And so I think Canadians are actually being set up for failure, and it's really unfortunate because I think Canada is such a beautiful country with amazing people. We just need a really great leader at the helm.
So how will we get back to black? Will there be more taxes, perhaps? Another carbon tax, or maybe there's even talk of a potential house tax for homeowners?
Uh, certainly if Trudeau is at the helm again, after, what we expect to be a fall election, there are all sorts of potential ways that he will tax Canadians in order to be able to, steal back that money that he has dialed out. And so, I think your imagination could take you all sorts of places and you're not too far off, probably. Certainly, Canadians will look at increased taxes. That's just inevitable going forward. But at some point, the Prime Minister has to face the music and bring back, rein in spending, and or he has to cut back on social programs. And I think that's what concerns me most is he can spend right now, and it's a really great ploy for him in terms of being able to garner support from Canadians who think it's free money. It's not free. Eventually they will either have to pay it back in taxation, or they will lose out because social services will be reduced. And so again, it's just a really sad place to put Canada.
Now, you've gone on record saying that Trudeau Liberals have been ignoring Canadians who live in rural areas for a number of years now, that rural Canadians' voices are not being heard. Can you explain in more detail?
Yeah, certainly. So obviously, representing an area where we have a city of just over 100,000 people, and then we're surrounded by these vibrant farms. And, the rural community is so important to me and important to us as Lethbridge. It's really what keeps us economically sound as a community. And it's really what also keeps us stable in the midst of ups and downs within the energy sector that impact the rest of our province. So that said, I think our rural community is really important for the federal government to take seriously. And of course, I'm interested in Lethbridge, but also, Canada as a whole. So one of the biggest things that farmers have been asking for years and years and years now is an investment in broadband. So, farming technology has changed. Farmers need dependable internet. They need high speed internet in order to be able to function well in a competitive market. And without broadband, they're just not able to do that to the extent that is necessary. So the current government has promised that they're going to invest in broadband, and they've made that promise over and over and over again, but yet they're slow to deliver. And so I'm pleased that Aaron O'Toole has come out and he said that by 2025, guaranteed, broadband will be available. Farmers can count on it, and we will be moving forward. And we just know that that is absolutely essential for the well-being of our country as we move to a place of wanting to regain economic prosperity as a whole.
Now, Rachel, you've been quite critical of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the past, saying that the worst thing about having an activist prime minister is that he rarely focuses on what is good for the country as a whole. Can you explain?
Yeah, for sure. So I think an activist prime minister is someone who picks his pet projects and then sticks with them, no matter the cost to others. So, for example, if we just think back about 2 years ago, SNC Lavalin. So the prime minister was faced, or he made the decision, I'll say, to interfere in what was a criminal investigation with regard to SNC Lavalin, which is a construction company based in Quebec. So he pressured the attorney general to let SNC Lavalin off the hook. And when he was asked why he did that, the prime minister said, well, it's to protect jobs. It's interesting to me that the prime minister was willing to break ethics rules or ethics laws in order to protect jobs in his own riding or jurisdiction. However, when we watch members that work within the energy sector, for example, when they come under attack, when their jobs are threatened, we didn't see the prime minister come and defend them. We didn't see the prime minister lift a finger. And we weren't asking him to break any ethics laws on our behalf. We were just asking him to take leadership. We were asking him to be the prime minister of this country, and he wasn't even capable of doing that. So, how you can see that he picks and chooses. He determines who's going to win and who's going to lose, and he pits sectors against one another and regions against one another based on what is good for him. Hell, at the end of the day, Canadians know that is not good leadership. That is not what a responsible prime minister should be doing. And it's my hope that they hold him to account in this upcoming election.
Now, Liberal Heritage Minister Stephen Gibault received a lot of pushback recently when he quietly deleted a tweet that accused public outrage over the controversial Bill C-10 as being part of a misinformation campaign. But was it? I mean, the concern many Canadians and Albertans have is that it really is a censorship bill.
Exactly. So Bill C-10 would regulate the internet, and essentially it would make some information more visible and then it would hide other information. And so it's been reported by legal experts that this is in fact in contradiction to Section 2B of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which allows us to have freedom of belief, freedom of expression, freedom of opinion. And of course, that goes two ways. So it's the ability to put our beliefs or our opinions out there, but it's also the right to be heard. And so when the government interferes and creates algorithms that are going to make some material more visible than others, it actually is an imposition on our rights because, as you know, the internet is the new public square. So that said, Bill C-10 is a direct attack on our freedoms as Canadians. And so, of course, I used my voice to stand up against it during the spring, and we were quite successful. So it ended up going to the Senate. It's been held up there. It looks like if all goes according to plan, it should actually die there, which is good news for Canadians. But To come back to your question, Hal, it is exactly what you're saying. It is censorship to the nth degree. And what I find interesting is that Minister Gibbo, the Heritage Minister who is leading this file, anyone who came out with questions or criticisms with regard to this bill, he said that they were spreading misinformation, and he called them extremist in nature. Well, I find it troubling that the minister wouldn't be open to some criticism or to some questions, that he wouldn't actually want to make the bill better, especially when experts were speaking out and saying that it was one of the most regressive pieces of legislation that they have ever seen.
Now, speaking of bills, what's the latest with Bill C6, amending the criminal code to include conversion therapy? Is there a provision to allow for counseling for those who earnestly seek it?
So Bill C6, of course, has to do with conversion therapy, and I just want to stay straight up. In no way should an individual ever feel threatened or be mistreated, ever, ever. There is no acceptable time for that. And so the spirit or the intent of Bill C6 to protect all Canadians, including those who would identify as transgender or same-sex attracted, etc., those individuals do deserve to be protected under the laws within Canada. And our charter does that. Bill C6 looked to do that to a greater extent. Now, I understand the spirit of Bill C6 and I agree with the spirit of Bill C6. However, the way that it was drafted was really poor. And so at the end of the day, as a legislator needing to really, act diligently and with vigilance, it just ended up being something that I couldn't support the final wording of. That said, it's gone on to Senate, and now Senate will have to consider it. It's my hope that we can bring forward some productive amendments and make it a stronger piece of legislation with accurate wording.
Is one of the amendments, like I said, possibly a provision to allow people who want to seek counseling have access to it?
Right. And so I think, individuals who wish to seek, counseling from, let's say, a faith leader or from a clinical psychologist, or counselor, they should have that ability to do so and to talk freely from whatever angle they wish. I mean, again, that is a part of their Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms as well. And so, my hope would be that the language would be clarified and that people's freedoms would be protected.
Now, many in our city are excited to see the return of Whoop Up Days, Rachel. Calgary had its party with the Stampede, and you'll be celebrating as well with a free pancake breakfast September 3rd at Exhibition Park.
Yeah, hell, I am so excited that Alberta is back up and running and that we are able to host this event. So my team and I will be hosting a pancake breakfast September 3rd from 7:30 to 10 a.m. at Exhibition Park, and it's open to everyone. So this is not a partisan event. This is simply a community event open to anyone within Lethbridge and the surrounding area. And we hope as many people as possible come out and join us for this free event.
Now, Rachel, let's talk about a very special person, an incredible entrepreneur and philanthropist who we lost, Mr. Cor Van Ray. Now, let's talk about the generosity with the YMCA in Lethbridge. He was able to help build that world-class facility. He was also a champion for agriculture in our community, supporting a wide range of projects. Rachel, Mr. Van Ray is a man who will be sorely missed.
Hmm. Hal, I'm so pleased that you're asking about Cor Van Ray because he certainly is a model citizen within the Lethbridge community. As someone who came to Canada from Holland with $5 in his pocket, as he says, he really started from the ground and worked his way up, and of course became very successful in business and agriculture, specifically having to do with running feedlots. And so, being incredibly successful within the beef industry, he was able to take some of that profit, a significant portion of that profit, I should add, and invest it back into the community. So whether that was supporting, the building of the YMCA on the west side, or creating the Picture Butte swimming pool, or supporting the college agricultural business program or the university's agricultural program. And then most recently, he put $2 million towards a link pathway that will connect Lethbridge to Coaldale so that we can bike or run or walk between the two communities. I mean, we're just talking about a man who had vision and determination, but and within that, he had a heart of gold and a passion for his community and wanted to make it better. And I so admire who he was, and just the amazing ways that he sewed into Lethbridge.
Amen. He was an incredible man, incredible human being, and quite the entrepreneur here in southwestern Alberta. Now let's circle back to the election for just a moment here. What will it take for the Conservative Party to finally break through the Liberal strongholds, such as the Greater Toronto Area and in Quebec? I mean, more seats must be won in central Canada in order to win a majority for the CPC in the next federal election. What are your thoughts?
Ultimately, I think, we require a leader who's going to inspire Canadians, who's going to offer hope and prosperity for our country. And I think really, at the center of that is helping Canadians understand that they are the hope. Hope actually doesn't rest in big government programs or, money that is going to be, handed out by the government and then recollected as taxes later on. But our hope, our future, our way forward as a country actually rests in the potential of Canadians. We all have gifts and talents and abilities to offer. And if we collectively put those forward, if we work together, we really can see Canada succeed and regain its place on the world stage. And so it's my hope that Canadians are able to see that they are the problem solvers, they are the solution makers, they are the way forward as Canada looks to come back from COVID. And I think, our success as the Conservative Party of Canada is exactly that. It is empowering Canadians to be the answer. It's empowering Canadians to be their best selves rather than dictating to them what they should or should not be or how they should or should not act, et cetera. And so really it comes down to freedom, it comes down to hope, it comes down to prosperity. And I do believe that Conservatives carry that banner quite well. And I believe that Aaron O'Toole is a phenomenal leader in that regard.
Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachael Harder, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me, Hal.